This video covers shortening the length of a Chamberlain belt style garage opener, getting some extra pull length in this particular style model, and some general relationships with the Chamberlain belt systems. In this house, there's a ventilation duct that's blocking the full use of the track length. I installed the first opener over here using the instruction booklet and cannot find any videos in existence that covers shortening the track length, so I decided to create this video. There is a video on shortening an 8-foot Chamberlain belt link, and the link is going to be in the section below. And to give it credit, to give me peace of mind that I was doing something that somebody else already did. If you don't know, all standards are 7 foot, and occasionally you need an 8-foot one, and they sell an 8-foot install kit. For a standard install, there's a pretty good video by Hindsight 101. It's linked in the About section. I consider this video a good supplement for his video. The first part of this video contains the install tips. The install tips deviate slightly from the install order contained in the booklet. I suggest watching these tips for any install. I personally think this order is a little bit better than the instructions were verbatim. The second part of the video covers the shortening of the track, the belt, as well as extending the track travel length by moving the stop point in this particular model. The first install tip is to not install the forward pulley until after you're in the vertical, or at least you're raised up a bit. The reason why is that this one here has gotten a little grooves cut in from being down and got cut into by the retainer piece. So the one over here is not in right yet. And this right here would actually be cutting into this and damaging it. The second tip is to install all of your track sections with the flat part facing up and the ridge facing down. The reason why is that the first section has this flat part on the upper side. This is the one unique one that has the tab that has to go up, and that's the ridge on the bottom. If you put the ridge on the same position for the entire track, the wearing will be similar, and you'll have less wear on the track housing as it travels up and down. The third trick is about running the wires for the sensors in the front. The easiest and cleanest way is to actually run it through the center track. And what you do is you go through the center there, then up and into where the tab has been lifted. And it goes back over there. The installed one. And it goes back in there. And what I did is I put it so that there's a little raised area. I put it in there so that it stays clear of the belt itself. The one thing about it that makes it a little tough is that these tracks right here, when you run them through, is that when you're running through the center, is that you have to run it from an outer to an inner side. So you have to get within there. So it's easier just to run them individually and when you're putting it initially together. If you happen to get to the point, or you could use a, what do they call those things? I guess a fish tape, or they have, I forgot what the ones with fiberglass, what they're called, but they're like the harder ones. You can run that in there, but it's a little harder to do. You need to pull apart these sections right here. You can pull this tab up from the side and out, and then this will slide out, so you can do this. So this right here, what I'm going to do is I have this right here, and I'm going to actually disconnect this, and I'm going to run the sections one at a time. So to separate these sections, because I'm going to run the wire in there, and it's going to be easier when they're separated. I already did to 3 of them. What I do is I use the screwdriver, I go from the side tab, and I pull this tab out right here. If you're going to set the tabs back in to reinstall it, so that way it'll catch, you can use it from here and push down like this, and it'll push the tab back in. No. This is hard to do one-handed. Let's see. Worried about this falling right here. So I remove that one. And all right, it came out right there. So now, without this being in here and being more restrictive, it's much easier to run the wires. So if you run the wires before you install everything, it'll make it a little bit easier to do everything else. I think it's just easier. I don't know why the instructions have you do this later, but it's probably the best trick of all of them. So here I have it right here. I ran the wires through there. I'm going to push the tabs back in and do it from the top like that. So that way they'll catch when they go back in. and then run the second section before you put it on there. Don't forget to run the wire through that and do it to each section until you have it out the back. And that ends the tips and tricks. If you have any more questions about a standard install, go watch the Hindsight 101 video. And one last little small trick is when you run these in here, this one, the other one didn't have it, but this one, it looks like this is fairly sharp in here, this edge right here, and it's starting to shave these a little bit, so just be careful, don't nick this, and otherwise you might end up with a short in there. So this should end the tricks segment right here. Another hint, another helpful tip for this is if you happen to disconnect your tensioner, what they do, they have you put it on here, tighten up to a certain amount, and then have it pop out. What you want to do is you want to make sure that the length from here to here is 1 1/4 inch. 1 1/4 inch means that this thing's up under enough tension that this belt is good. I saw in the video where the guy cuts down the belt on when it goes down, this belt on the return path is very loose. So this one's a little bit loose. It's probably about it's halfway between 1 1/4 and 1. So this is the starting point for when you want to shorten the track. So right now I had it, what I've done, installed it for normal, except for I don't have the pulley up in there, which I don't think you put it until you run the track. And I got 4 of the 5. So the last one's going to be the one I'm going to cut. These are also the flat side up, and I've run the wire for instructions. So the flat side here, talk about it in the tips and tricks. So right now I got, here's 2 pieces. This is the bottom half from this is the side that I cut off to shorten the length of. And over here, this was originally the last piece on there. Originally I had the front piece in front and this piece in back. You can see there's a hole right here. This is the hole I moved instead of using this one. I think Chamberlain uses standard parts, probably just, make everything simple. So the hole's way more forward than it has to be for the stop. So you're able to get a couple more inches out of it by running it through here. And it also, on the other one over there, what helps is that it'll actually hold it. It'll tie it down to the piece that connects to the motor itself, the motor housing assembly. Also, the reason why you want to make it the last piece is originally when I made it the front piece, this edge right here, I don't know if you can see it, this edge, even after deburring it, it's scratching the housing. So your little running, your carousel is going to wear out more quickly once it travels over that. So if you had like the old one in here, at this point, it'd actually be the front one, not this one. This is the part that got cut off. So you'd actually run, and even if you deburr it and file it down like it did originally, it would not. And what's nice about having the hole at the very end is that it goes through the retainer piece too, and then so that one's held into shape pretty well. When you're cutting this is when you want to measure first, just to make sure you're doing okay. I measured this thing 3 times before I figured out this is the amount of length to cut off. And if you look at what's been done, here's where it comes out right here. This is originally was supposed to go up there, just be able to fit in here. I end up lowering it down a little just because the way the light goes, it goes out a little bit better. But over here, you can see the original track position would actually be, if I use that one, I end up cutting it shorter so that the track position got deleted. And then this originally, when I had it more forward, you can still see the scratches from when I tried to retain it against there. That was a bad idea. Luckily the track runs up and down, so it won't be too bad of an issue. When you're doing this, what you want to do is you want to err on the side of making a second cut. You want to be a little longer. You can't go back and make stuff longer. You can shorten your track again. I know this right here, I had the full length on the door, but I'd like to, just to make sure, add an extra inch. If it happens to be a little bit short on there, it's on there. So I'm going to cut this down. This is that last piece. This happened to be the middle one, and you can see it's nice because the hole's going to be gone there. So I'm going to cut this piece down and then install it as the last piece, and then I'm going to see how it fits in the position relative to that. If you're going to do this, you probably want to assemble everything, all 5 of them together. Don't put on the belt. Just run it up there and see how much space you need to do that, and you know, attach this, attach the last piece, attach it to the housing per the instructions, and run it up to see how far over you are. Another thing I did is I pulled out the old, there was wood up there from the original install. Something kind of cool about this one is that somebody put their name when they installed it, which is, so Jim over here, he installed this on 12/23/2000, so it's a 21-year-old garage door. It's, you know, 2 weeks before 21-year-old, so this garage door install can almost drink now. So that's about it, and I'll meet you at the next stop. So I'm at the point where I cut down, this is the 5th segment right here. I wiped it down to get rid of all the metal shavings from it, and then deburred it on the edge. And right now I have this hooked up here. I didn't install any other stuff because just in case it's too long, I can take it out easily. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to drill a hole through here later, and that hole is going to go through here, and it's going to go retain through here. That way this will be retained. Right now, since it's shorter, I have to hold it. That's probably why they did the order a certain way or tell you not to cut this one, is because this might be a lawsuit. When you do it, you want to do it at the bench, and when you're going to cut it, later I'm going to cut it between both those. Right now, I'm just checking the length, and this right here, I'm trying to see how it would fit in here. You got to be careful not to strike that because doesn't have the cover on yet. And here's what the overall length would look like about here. So right here, I'm thinking this is going to be hanging off right here. It gives me enough access to that right there. And I'm hoping that that will hold up there. I got to go see if it's going to hold in spacing right there. So I think this is good, but I'm going to still verify it by hooking it up or checking the length to make sure that stuff will hold. So when I do that, I'll do that offline because it's harder to do two-handed with this thing being loose here. So I'm at the point where I wanted to mock up everything just to make sure it fits before I cut the travel screw in there and then cut the belt itself. I ended up changing out the L bracket right here. The other one, I tried to use one that came with it. It just doesn't have enough spacing in there. And this one also sticks out a little bit right here. I still have enough room right here. That's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to add the extra inch. The one over here, this one will actually fit underneath here. I lowered it though because I wanted the light to get out right here, this particular one. What I had to worry about though was over here, this, you can't really see, but it has a slight angle downward, and that's so it can fit. Right here, the problem is you see it, there's a door notch cut out. This is for the old screw track that was in there. And this one over here, I wanted to run this just to make sure that it would clear it. And so this one does not have a notch. And if I replace this, so this right here, I'm going to cut the last piece right here. When I put it in my vise, what I want to do, since the track is on the, you want to cover it too, or make sure you don't try to scratch it. You want to preserve it so that way there's less wear on your carriage as it travels up and down. I put it on held it by the side, simply because there's less carriage on the side of it in case it does, and I wrapped it with this. Right here, I want this much extra right here. It's because it's hanging below the last part of it. Just the shape of the particular model I have is going to be right below that lip, and I can have it this much more. If it ends up, the track, the shorter one, or the first one I finished, does have the full length of it, but this one, it has a little more play for future use. If I ended up not liking it, or it's like too much, then what I can do is I can recut it and cut it down. So remember, if you think you're gonna cut it a little bit longer than shorter, because shorter you can't go back on. Longer, well, it's just another step. It's the whole measure twice, cut twice thing, or measure twice, cut once, and screw yourself. So just do it right, be careful, and yeah, safety. So you know, I'm using a hacksaw, so I'm not going to be wearing ears, but I'll be throwing on some eyes and throwing on some gloves for this part. So now I'm happy with the length, and I verified it by putting it up. I'm going to actually cut. This is the travel stop right here, and it's going to travel cut between both this and this. This is the adapter that goes, this is the standard size. Recognize this is the half that we cut off right here. This is the old hole from when I had it on the first one. So this right here, it's going to go through both of these. I put some cardboard down so that way this table's kind of rough. I don't want to rough up the edge, especially with it vibrating. Another thing to do when you drill it in, and on this particular one I can go pretty far. So I want to go right around here for the most travel. I don't want to go too far because then I weaken this. I want to keep it as small as possible, just enough to get this through because I don't want to weaken this as much. This is pretty high carbon there. It ate up the first drill bit I used on the first one. Took off the titanium nitride. It ripped it off there. So when you're cutting through this and you're drilling through it, this might vibrate. And so when you get through this, you want to make sure that this is flush like that when you drill through it, because that's going to be holding this together, which is nice because now this doesn't use the retaining back pieces anymore that you cut out, but it'll still be retained. So it makes it a lot easier putting it up and down. That's why it's first time it's verifying it, it's a little harder to do that up and down. Of course, you know, I got my ears on already, and I'm going to go drill with this. And I'm going to go what I think is a little bit smaller than needed, drill it out, and then see, and then go up from there. So here it's finished, and something I learned this time. Last time when I did the first one, I actually started out with a smaller drill bit and worked my way up to a larger drill bit till this fit. This time I decided to try to use intermediate, and it was too big. And you see what it was doing, it was walking off. It's the drill I have is kind of a cheaper one, so it's just on, off. So last time I did is I hand scored it with a drill, which is just making it go and then making a little starting hole, and use a small one. That's totally suggested. Other thing is you might want to go from the bottom, and that's because I didn't realize this, but the ridge in here is a little more pronounced. You can't really, let's see if you can see it. There's a ridge in there. You see it here. It's more pronounced. And last time I went through no problem. This time I walked off a little bit right there. So what I ended up doing is that, well, ended up pulling it out, finishing this one through, and then going from the back, and then finding that. This fits in a natural valley a little bit better. It's easier to go through. Well, it's done. Just go wipe it down and install it. All right, so here's it assembled. Now what's nice is that this is retaining right here. You see this is as far back as it'll go. To pull this back, you can see the travel distance at which it'll go. It'll stop right there, which is still above that. The only thing is that this now hangs over here. It'll still clear that and come out. So what's nice about this model, this gained about 6 inches of travel right there. It would stop here previously. Now I can stop there. And wires are run through. Now it's the last challenge, and that is to cut the belts, and then we're going to be final assembly. So here we are. We're going to cut the belt down the size to fit our new, smaller track. And we're going to cut twice the distance of this right here, the amount of track we cut off. We have the two ends right here. Here's the hook end. I already took it off. This is the tensioner end right here. I think the hook end's better to do because the tensioner end, this is where the teeth are. So any variation in here is probably going to be a lot more effective than this on the pulley side. It's just from the factory, it's probably straighter than what you can get it once you do it. So to take this off, I'll show you on this end, if I can get this to stay straight, is that shit, let's see if better. So if you have flat pliers, what you can do, you can wedge them between there and then push them out. I'm not going to show you this, but I pushed it out. Another thing you can do is if you don't have that, get a flathead screwdriver and put it in there and twist just to bring that out. It'll space it out. In this case, one side wanted to go a lot more than the other. You need a little bit of both sides to go. And you can get underneath and wedge them out a little bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut off a certain amount. So this was sticking out with the last one just below that, like there. So this is the last set of teeth. And if you remember which way the teeth go, they're going to pull on the tension. They're not going to go the other way. So you're going to be pulling into that. What you're going to do, you're going to measure twice the amount of this. I'm going to actually measure it a little better than this, but this is the rough end. So you take that, and you're going to take twice the amount. And this is going to be whatever tooth comes out. This is just the rough version. I'm going to actually do it myself with both hands. That's going to be the last position, which will be on the very last tooth on this. So it'll be the very last position right here on the tooth, and that's going to be how you're going to do it. I'll show you the final product. And once you're done, reassemble this, put it back together, and I cut it. I used the end of a pair of pliers, and then I finish it off with a metal cutting saw. What you do is you want to make sure that you're on the bottom and not on a tooth. So at the valley, not on the tooth top. I would err on the side of making it longer instead of shorter if you can't decide which one to go with. When you reassemble, the part sticking out right here, these metal bits, these little metal teeth sticking out, they're going to be facing inwards, so you'll be facing towards the hook when you put it in there. And the last one will be right on the outside of this one. And it just fits in that valley right there. And then you're just going to either compress it, either with a whatever tool you have to compress it with. So once I get this, this is pretty much the last step, is that you have this there, and you just follow the regular process forward, and then you're good to go. Well, I hope you enjoy. Before I put this on, I'm actually going to thread it through the pulley, since I have it on there, because the pulley's already on there. And if you happen to actually like use the tensioner already, and now you have that loose, you happen to have the loose spring in there, or the spring is not under that tension anymore, you want to make sure that the spring length goes down to 1 1/4 inch. It should tell you on that. That much compression means there's not much pressure on it, and you should be good to go. Here's the final product. It's a little beat up from all the scratches, but it's in good shape, back in the original shape and in line. What I end up doing is I end up using one set of vice grips to press on the top and the bottom of the metal, the other one to push it in, swish it around a couple times, got it in, and then just squeezed it together, squeeze it from top to bottom, and this should hold for the life of it. And just assemble it now. Alright, and that's the last video of it installed right there. See, I got the full range of this one. The one that's an inch shorter is just slightly shorter than that. And the handle is the only thing that sticks below it. So you might ask yourself if this is a good idea or not for your situation. It really depends on how much you have to cut off and how high your door is. Ours, we have standard size doors, they're 7-footers, and we ended up cutting off this, which is just shy of a foot, and end up getting some of that back and moving the hole. And so that ended up with a loss of about like 6 or 7 inches, which in our case it worked out okay, and we're able to get the full range of the door. Really depends. If you're willing to accept a little bit of loss in your situation, maybe that might be the best route. The other alternative in the more modern houses is that you have what's called torsion springs, versus these are expansion springs up here. You can see the one up behind me. It's an older style, and they don't really make them anymore, but they make replacement parts for it all the time. On the torsion springs, it's the one that sits above the garage door. It's a spring coil. You might hear a loud boom. They're a little more dangerous to change if you do it yourself, but putting on the garage door opener might be a good route for you to go down. They are a little more finicky, from what I've been told, and they also, when they close, they actually have a loud click. So you hear that. They're not as quiet. The belts are really quiet up and down, and they need that lock in there so that way nobody can come up and just move the garage door up and down on you. And they also are a little more expensive, but you'll free up the space above the garage door. If you have a really high ceiling, you might want to put something up there and gain access to it. So there's another questions. If I didn't answer something, or if you have a weird situation, please leave something in the comments, and maybe somebody else can help you, or maybe I can help you. Next video I want to do is going to be on the list that I keep. Is there things that I don't see good videos for, and that I have to go try to develop something myself, and then try to share it with everyone. And I think the next one is going to be the IKEA packs. unless I have some other suggestions. But I have that list. It's on the About page for this thing. So kind of basic, but it's going to take me a while. I got a lot of stuff to do. So I'm hoping it works out well, and hopefully get another one out there. And hopefully this was really helpful. And if you have a success story, I'd love to hear it. Have a good one. Thank you.